From the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University, this is Trailblazer Weekly.
Welcome inside Trailblazer Weekly on a Wednesday afternoon. We are live in Studio A of the Jennings Communication Building here on the campus of Dixie State University. This is Trailblazer Weekly, and I'm your host, Drayson Ball. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. And as you can see, I am all by myself. Carrick Segmiller, my co-host, or former co-host, I guess I should now say, has moved on from Dixie State, if you haven't heard, has changed careers and is no longer with the school. And obviously, we're sad to see him go, but we wish him luck on all of his future endeavors. Trying to thank him for all the time he spent making the show what it is today. We wish him the best of luck. Obviously, sad to see him go, but as they say, the show must go on. And what a show we have for you today. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. We had a chance to catch up with head coach Johnny Rodhead of the men's soccer team and a few of his players as well. We'll have that for you later on in the episode, and we are jam-packed, but let's get right into it. Let's start just like we always do with our Blazer Beat. First things first, the Division I era for Dixie State has begun as the women's swimming team competed in a dual meet up at Brigham Young University last weekend, and freshman Haley Altman was named the Western Athletic Conference Swimmer of the Week in her collegiate debut, no less. Altman was a part of two school records, the first of which was the second leg of a 200-meter medley, which helped the squad finish in second place overall with a time of 1:44.99. And then in Altman's first individual race in her collegiate career, she set a school record for the 100-meter breaststroke with a time of 1:01.97, earning her the victory in the 100-meter breaststroke. Moving on to Trailblazer football, they've announced their 2021 spring schedule. Dixie State will play 6 games as part of their spring schedule, including 3 games right here in St. George at Greater Zion Stadium. The first game of the season will take place on February 27th at fellow D1 newcomer and WAC foe Tarleton State, followed by a matchup with New Mexico State on March 6th. The first home game for Dixie State will be on March 13th versus Tarleton State. And then the Trailblazers will wrap up their season finishing at Kennesaw State on March 20th, home to a couple of former RMAC foes, Fort Lewis on March 27th, and New Mexico Highlands on April 3rd. As well as the fall sports or the spring sports schedules being released, the winter sports schedules were released as well for men's and women's basketball, and they will be getting underway here in just a few weeks. The men's basketball non-conference games are highlighted by in-state opponents such as Weber State, Utah State, Southern Utah, and a matchup with the preseason AP favorite, number 1 Gonzaga, in Spokane, Washington on December 29th. For the women's basketball, Dixie State will host BYU on December 1st. Then we'll travel to UNLV to play the Rebels on December 16th. And they'll wrap up their non-conference schedule in Cedar City against SUU on December 21st. Conference play begins for both teams on January 8th. Looking forward to getting into all that action. That got me thinking as we transition now into the question of the day. Obviously, we are already begun in the Division I era, but we really started getting into the meat and potatoes of this schedule here in just a couple of weeks, and it really got me thinking, what can we expect from Dixie State's first season in Division I? Obviously, there's going to be a lot that's going to go into this season. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and what can we really expect from this season in Division I? And I think one of the things we can point to is we have a former member of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference where we were in California Baptist. They just barely moved up into Division I from Division II and became members of the WAC. So we can kind of look to them to see what they were able to do in their first couple of seasons in Division I. A couple of things I wanted to mention as we translate into Division I. What are some of the things we're going to look for as to be measures of success for Dixie State? And in my opinion, we can't necessarily measure their successes by wins or by losses. Obviously, if we win a lot of games, that's going to be a good indicator of success. But I think for us, if we're going to be competitive in these Division I games, I think that will be a great indicator of how successful we're going to be. Obviously, one of the things that I'm most curious about for this first season is how does the speed of the game compare to that of Division II? Obviously, we hear athletes talk about the difference in the speed of the game from, high school to college or college to pro. And, it's going to be interesting for me at least to see if there's any sort of difference between the speed of the game between Division II and Division I. That's certainly something that I think will be an interesting to note. Like I mentioned, I just want to see Dixie State be competitive. Obviously, there's going to be a few moments where they're just going to be outmatched. They're going to be it's going to be tough to compete with some of these more recognized Division I schools, but let's just make sure we be patient with this team, these teams. Let's make sure we understand. There's going to be a learning curve to this. There's going to be a lot of ups and there's going to be a lot of downs. So let's make sure we kind of keep our expectations in check, I guess. And, last thing I wanted to note, like I mentioned before, former Pac-West foe California Baptist, they were Division II just like we were, and they moved up into the WAC as well. So they took a very similar transition into Division I as Dixie State is this season. And they've been fairly successful in a few of their their first few seasons. In men's basketball, they were second place in the conference last season in their second season in Division I with a 21-10 record. Women's basketball was second place in the conference in their first season 2 years ago with an 18-12 record. And so let's kind of maybe look to California Baptist to maybe see what this team could be potentially in Division I. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to get into it. But that is our question of the day. First segment already gone just like that. Right after this, we're going to come back. We're going to be able to talk to a few of the men's soccer players, Idris Alabi and Matt Lockwood. We're going to get a chance to see what they think of the upcoming season with Division I. That'll be coming up right after this timeout on Trailblazer Weekly.
Radio Dixie 91.3. Young the Giant, something to believe in.
John, what song do you want to hear? Next, it's kind of this. I was going to talk to you last time.
Today's show is brought to you by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official source for DSU Trailblazer clothing, providing students with textbooks as well as educational, office, and art supplies. Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center, the Dixie State Campus Store, proud sponsor of Trailblazer Weekly.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly as we march on Wednesday afternoon inside the Jennings Communication Building here on the campus of Dixie State University. And man, oh man, we had a chance to catch up with a few of the men's soccer players and Coach Broadhead, and it was a lot of fun. They were able to give us a lot of insightful responses on what they've been going through this pandemic and the postponement of all fall sports, and why they chose Dixie State and why they're playing soccer at any level. And so it was really fun to catch up with them. Let's start off with redshirt junior defender Idris Alabi. We sat down with him, and here's what he had to say on his upcoming season of Division I.
I started playing when I was 4 years old for Junior Blitz up in Salt Lake City. My major motivation for playing soccer was my dad. He's from the Ivory Coast, and that's all he played when he grew up. So it wasn't basketball or football for me, it was always soccer. Johnny showed up to a camp that I was going to. Originally, he was actually still the assistant coach at UVU, and I had emailed him saying, hey, I'm gonna be at this random camp in Phoenix. And he, it wasn't a response then, but shows up to the camp, and that week he got the job for Dixie State. And ever since then, I started talking to him, and I looked at the university had the pathway that I wanted to go down, and campus is nice, the area is nice, the weather is very similar to what it's like back in Tucson. So my favorite player of all time is Thierry Henry. He used to play for Arsenal in France. Arsenal's my favorite team, and just the way he played, I personally think he's top 5 best players of all time. But I look up to him. I look up to Drogba because he's from the Ivory Coast, and that's where my dad's from, so I always loved him. Even though he played for Chelsea, I do love him too. And then right now, my favorite player is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, plays for Arsenal, and he's just scoring goals for fun at this point, so I look up to him too. I don't really have a routine per se. Make sure I eat normally. I like listening to instrumental music on the bus if we have one going to away games. But other than that, just making sure that the other guys are ready to play. I listen to like movies, so like Interstellar soundtrack or Inception, those are like my favorite movies. So like listening to that, and there's certain artists like Two Steps from Hell or stuff like that that has instrumentals that I like. One thing that's been positive for me going back to the whole medical school thing is it has given me more time than I probably would have to be able to focus on school, which is nice. For the team, it's interesting with the team because usually during spring is usually when we have our we historically have had little blips where it's like, okay, we're only playing ourselves for a certain amount of time before we get to play somebody else. And now it's been a long time, like especially this semester where we're only playing ourselves, and it's been hard as a team being able to not get super angry with each other when you're only playing each other all the time. But we know that this next semester that we're going to be able to play games, so we're just trying to get our team as best as we can knit together to be able to play. Hoping to win games. A lot of people probably think we're going to go in this season and get shown what it's like to play Division I, but I have confidence in our team that we're going to be able to show them that we deserve to be here. And I take that very seriously, and I hope that the rest of my teammates do too.
Idris is a captain, so he leads in several different ways. So his leadership as a captain, the guys, I mean, he presents himself in a way where the guys, they want to hear from him. They want to know what his expectations are. They want to know where he feels the team is at, because they're all bought in. They watch him work every day. They know what kind of a student he is and how much he cares about both and just how driven he is to be successful at both. The guys don't question any move he makes. I mean, even when he's injured, he's off the side, the guys are still looking to get stuff from him. But I think he's friends with everybody on the team. He can get along with any mixed crowd. But great student, great soccer player, high expectations of himself, and a great leader, like a great leader.
Man, it was fun to talk to Idris and hear what Coach Broadhead had to say about him. I loved what Idris said about why he got into playing soccer, and it was because of his dad. And that's just something, you know, obviously when a family member, especially one of your parents, gets you into the sport that you're playing at the collegiate level, there's always just something a little extra special about, you know, being able to call back to those early years in Idris's life, I'm sure, playing soccer because of his dad. I love what Coach Broadhead said about him, that he's a leader. The team looks to him to be a leader, and looks to him to really provide that sort of lead for that team. Next up, we talked to junior defender Matt Lockwood, who started all 20 games for Dixie State last season, and you know, he talked about kind of the benefits that he's been able to see from this pandemic and this kind of break in the action that they've had to be able to kind of get more prepared for Division I. Let's hear what Matt Lockwood had to say on the upcoming season.
I started playing soccer at a really young age. Mainly, I think my mom put me in it because she didn't want me to play football. My older brother played football, and I think it kind of freaked her out. But I really liked soccer, you know, and I played it up until high school. Then I took a break because I wanted to play football and wrestle. And then I got injured wrestling, and so I went back to soccer. So it was kind of odd, but I mean, it's worked out, so I have no regrets. I was in a weird spot in my college phase. Dixie State is the third university I've been to. And so going into that decision, I knew that I had to kind of really take the whole process a lot seriously, a lot more serious, because it didn't work out in my past two schools. But Johnny was here. Johnny was my club coach throughout high school. It was close to home, and then I found out they were getting a nursing program, so it kind of just seemed like the right thing to do, you know? For me, I'd say DeAndre Yedlin, just because he's a big-time pro player, and he came from Akron, so he's kind of done like the college path, and it's worked out well for him. And I feel like, at least for me, that was kind of the first player that kind of opened my eyes, saying that that could happen if you play your cards right and, you know, put in the work necessary. So for me, that's why Yedlin's definitely a role model. I usually wake up early and eat a big breakfast so I don't have to eat as much throughout the day. That's something I'm really paranoid about. Like, I hate eating a lot before games because I feel like it makes me heavy or sluggish or whatever the case is. Then I also try to stream a game of like a professional game just to kind of take my mind off things and kind of just zone in on soccer. So personally, it's given me some time to just focus on my academics, kind of get a college plan going. I am a junior, so things are going to start going really fast. And so that's helped, and I've met with Jacqueline, my advisor, like 4 times already this semester. So that's been a plus, because usually in fall you don't have time like that. So it's been great. And then in terms of soccer related, it's kind of allowed us to kind of just get our heads right. We're really fortunate just being at Dixie State. We're one of the few schools in our conference that's actually been able to practice. And so for us, it kind of allows us to have that chip on our shoulder, even though we're the new kids on the block, going into the spring season. So I'm looking forward to it, yeah. I expect us to compete. I think we'll prove a lot of teams wrong. It's not going to come easy, but I've played at the Division I level before. I know how it is, and I know it's really easy to get caught up in that. And don't get me wrong, there's some great teams that we're going to be playing, but you know, it's not like we're going and playing Barcelona or Real Madrid. Like, it's college soccer. Anyone can win on any given day. So.
Lockwood is very intense. It doesn't matter if it's the warm-up jog. He wants to do the best. He wants to get ready the best. He never takes a day off at training. He is, it's like the championship final every day at training for him. And some guys, it's very difficult to hang with that and to meet that. And if they don't, he's calling them out. And it's not the easiest thing to hear from some guys, because he is wired a lot differently than most people, how they approach just the most simple things of being an athlete. But Matt also brings a very focused student part to the group. I feel like a lot of times the last thing I do is coach the soccer team and coach them in soccer, because they're student athletes, and I want them to feel like they're doing both. And so there's a lot of things I have to emphasize about, getting your homework done, getting ahead in all your classes before we travel. And with Lockwood and Idris, they both stress that, and they both are examples of how to manage both of them at the same time and be very good at those. So Lockwood's a little different than Idris. He's a lot more intense and hot. But when the guys rise to that level, everyone culminates. It's pretty special. So he brings that intense aspect to the team.
Junior defender Matt Lockwood, who, like I mentioned, started all 20 games for Dixie State's men's soccer team last season, had a goal and 3 assists during that last season, and really fun to talk to him and get his perspective on this pandemic and the lockout. But we've got to take another time out. We got to take another break, and when we come back, we will catch up with the head coach of the men's soccer team, Johnny Broadhead, and hear what he has to say about the upcoming season in Division I. Back right after this on Trailblazer Weekly.
1, 2, 3, 4. 0.52 kilograms.
This graph is script.
Pretty close.
Artemisia is all the sagebrushes, but there's your needle and thread. Which one is this?
Sodium carbonate.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly as we continue on a Wednesday afternoon live from the Jennings Communication Building. And Johnny Broadhead is entering his 4th season as head coach of the men's soccer team. He is 30, 22, and 3 in his first 3 seasons at the helm for the men's soccer team. We had a chance to catch up with him and learn everything that he thinks about going into his first season in Division I and what he thinks about the pandemic as well. Here's Johnny Broadhead.
My game day routine at home, I don't like it as much because I have more time on my hands. Usually clean everything up, so a trim and a shave, just to look sharp, feel sharp. I probably don't eat as much on a game day. I don't feel the hunger because the nerves are there. But really it's just kind of enjoying the nerves because game day nerves are why we do it. So dealing with those when I have that time on my hands. But the guys need stuff, so I got to put the lineup in the locker room. We do a pregame meal at home, so if that's an earlier game breakfast, we'll have the guys there. We'll have all that to get ready for them. I'll give them a couple pointers to be focused on as they come to the game later. So make sure just to have that going. Usually there's a pro game on that we'll stream in the classroom there as we eat our breakfast. We'll take like a lap around the track, walk, stop halfway, stretch. The road game days are a little more fun because I'm able to keep myself more occupied and I don't have to think about the game as much. I still have to put a lot into it. We're on the road, we're having meetings and stuff all the time, so the guys know kind of what to focus on as they show up on game day. But getting meals ready, getting the cars gassed up for after the game, we got to go back to the airport. There's a lot more to do. But my favorite thing on the road game day is waking up early and wherever the hotel is, find a good coffee shop and be able to sit with myself and enjoy a nice hot cup of coffee. I like that time alone. That's about all the time I do have by myself when we're on the road. The rest of the time I'm with the team, staff, dealing with things. That's kind of, I never really thought about it. That's kind of that one time where you do get by yourself on a game day, and to be able to clear your head, remember what got you there and what's going to motivate the guys, it comes to me there. So the positive outtake from COVID and the season getting pushed back, I mean, the NCAA, a couple things, they've ruled that none of the fall sport athletes, not just men's soccer, but the other sports, they're not losing a season of eligibility this year. So we just had our season announced for the spring, a spring schedule with the WAC, 10 games. No matter what that season looks like, no one loses a year of eligibility. So it really gives you, I guess, more time to prepare for the adjustment, for the transition. The other aspect is, there is a conference tournament this spring, and as a new member, we're not eligible to participate in that postseason. But without anyone losing a year, it's almost like a free season. And there were definitely nerves of the transition itself. I think it takes a little edge off of the nerves because it's like this is almost like a practice run. I'm very hesitant to put it like that because we're not treating it that way, but even if we don't treat it that way, it still kind of ends up being that. So there's a few silver linings. We get a little more time to prepare, but I don't like saying it that way because we aren't taking it that way. We're taking advantage of it for sure. You know, I expect the guys to know what they need to do. So as their coach, my expectation is to give them that information, prepare them as best as I can, and have everything lined up because there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be, I mean, what we've dealt with even trying to practice this fall, keeping the guys safe, making sure they follow guidelines, you know, going home for a weekend, what that means. I mean, there's change all the time. My expectations, and I'm gonna make sure the guys know what they need to do, but I'm also expecting all the unexpected that's gonna come with it, and having to make changes and adjustments on the fly. Go deep in our roster because I don't know what this thing's doing all the time, and we're just gonna follow the rules and play by the rules and put the best team out there that's able to go. But a lot of rivalries with close opponents, and the guys, I mean, you got to find ways to motivate them sometimes, and when that stuff happens, it works itself out. So I expect some very competitive, exciting games for the fans to watch, and our guys to know what their job is from me, their coach.
All business from head coach Johnny Broadhead of the men's soccer team. He expects his team to go into Division I and compete, and he expects them to win. And I think we should, as fans, expect no less from the men's soccer team, who is being coached by one of the good ones, head coach Johnny Broadhead. But we've got to take one final timeout. On the other side of this break, we will wrap up the show and preview next week's episode right after this short timeout here on Trailblazer Weekly.
There's a rush coming.
Let's rush best 9 plays from last week in Region 9. Number 1 better be good.
One-handed grab, and Luke Wright is going to score a touchdown on one of the better grabs you'll ever see in high school football.
Lawrence, are you going to do anything, or are you just going to sit there?
This is Henry Bouchard, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I never found a customer base more in need of fine American-made sucking power than I found up and down the Wasatch Front in the mid-1980s.
There's one thing coaches love, it's media guys telling them how good or bad their team is.
My pick for the 4A state championship this year when it comes to football is the Stansbury Stallions.
Give me a break. This isn't a contest about who can shovel the most corn silage. I like Pine View.
Today's show is brought to you by Rock Canyon Bank, serving Utah businesses and agriculture for over 25 years, with locations in Pleasant Grove, Orem, Provo, Spanish Fork, Fillmore, and at 94 East Tabernacle, right here in St. George. Rock Canyon Bank, back to banking. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. Do want to thank our sponsor of the show, Rock Canyon Bank, as you just saw. Also, the Dixie State Campus Store for their continued support of Trailblazer Weekly. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram at DSU Blazer Weekly. Follow us on Facebook as well, Trailblazer Weekly on Facebook. But just about wrapped up with the show. We have a quick preview of next week's episode where we caught up with a pair of siblings from the volleyball team, Jordan and McKenna Nilsson. Here's a preview for next week's episode.
Going into D1 WAC, I just hope that we just go out with no fear. We just go out and we play our game. We know how to play volleyball. We know how our team works, and we just go out and have fun and play volleyball like we do. My hopes for this spring season are just to go out and have fun. I think we have such a special group of girls, and we're full of energy, and we just love to play together. So I think taking that into the game and just knowing that we could honestly give any of these WAC teams a run for their money.
It's going to be fun to talk to them and see the extended interviews of those two siblings, Jordan and McKenna Nilsson. Jordan, a senior, McKenna, a sophomore in this volleyball program. We'll also catch up with head coach Robin Felder of the volleyball team as we continue on our fall sports spotlights, and volleyball is our last sport. But that is our episode today. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in wherever and however you may be joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday on Trailblazer Weekly. Go Trailblazers.